Let it be said, the DualShock 4 is an excellent default controller. It served us well this generation, but what if you wanted a more premium, higher grade PS4 controller, perhaps similar to the Xbox One Elite with more accurate sticks, triggers and better build quality all round? Well, sadly, Sony has yet to make such a controller themselves, but instead their solution is to give the official licensing to two third-party options, starting with the Nikon Revolution Pro and also the Razer Raiju. Each is a wired controller targeting the professional or esports gamer, but the question is, at £80 for the Nacon or £150 for the Raiju, does either bring a substantial upgrade over a regular PS4 pad? Before we start, it's worth stressing neither works wirelessly. That's not the point of these controllers, though a shame it's not here as an option. Both the Nacon and Raiju rely on a detachable braided USB cable for low latency control. It's a no-nonsense approach, meant to give you the fastest trigger response in first-person shooters, for example. Other regular DualShock 4 extras are stripped out too. There's no inbuilt battery obviously, and the light bar and integrated speakers are removed. But in their place you get 4 extra customizable triggers on the back to tweak however you like. That's where the similarities end between the new controllers. Let's start with the Nikon Revolution Pro then, the cheaper of the two. Right off the bat, the Nacon has a nice velvety material in the hands and adopts the Xbox arrangement for thumbsticks, which some may see as a bonus. One complaint here is the mold of the gamepad doesn't sit quite as comfortably in the hand as I'd like. It feels uneven and overly bulky in the palms, especially compared to the slimmer design of the DualShock 4. As a bonus though, you can adjust the weight of the controller using supplied miniature weights added inside the hand grips themselves. It's something even the Razer Raiju doesn't offer, and it's a welcome option to have for anyone who finds it too lightweight. The thumbsticks feel great meanwhile. These are raised much higher than a regular PS4 pad, putting it more in line with the Xbox One's height. You get a 46-degree action on the tilt, which for FPS games like Battlefield 1 does make it easier to execute smaller, granular movements. Generally, it does take time to acclimatize to any new controller, a teething period, but the sticks here are worth putting the time into. They're more delicate, but with practice, it's clearly a more accurate tool for aiming and strafing in FPS titles. It's the strongest part of the Nacon controller by far. One weird aside here, the sticks use completely different designs, mixing a concave web-like texture for the left stick and a convex one on the right. It's a matter of preference which you prefer. Don't be fooled though, there's no hot swapping between styles of stick at all. They're permanently fixed in place like this, and really I'd have preferred some uniformity between the two out of the box. Elsewhere on the controller, the Nacon starts falling short though. For one, the trigger design is awkwardly shaped with very rigid angles built into the glossy plastic. Likewise, the D-pad is built from a similar glossy material, a single block with very restrictive movement. It's a lot like the original Xbox controller's D-pad in fact, not the worst out there, but for fighting game enthusiasts, it's a no-go. Rounding that off are the face buttons, which thankfully have a similar tactile feedback to the standard DualShock 4. They're oversized by comparison, but feel just as comfortable to use as a regular pad. Those are the basics. It's a mixed bag, but clearly this Nikon Revolution Pro is geared towards the FPS gamer. There is some neat customizability though. Unlike even the more expensive Razer Raiju, you have a multitude of ways to tweak the response from all inputs using a free Windows program on Nacon's website. Just download the program, connect the controller to a PC, and from there you can tweak just about everything you could imagine. So to explain that, you're given 4 custom preset slots, and for each one you can essentially remap every button. On top of that, it lets you modify the response curve and dead zones of the sticks, the sensitivity of the triggers, the intensity of vibration, and even program a macro sequence to a single button press. This is really cool stuff. Once detached from a PC, all this is accessed with the switch on the back of the controller, which triggers a change in LED color. All in all, the Nikon Revolution Pro has a lot of great ideas behind it. There's plenty to customize behind the scenes, the sticks feel great, though the D-pad and triggers are a step back from the regular DualShock. And so, at almost double the price, you'd expect the Razer Raiju to hand in something exceptional, a true leap in quality that does everything for everyone. The plus points first then, the Raiju feels much nicer in the hand. Ergonomically, this matches the Xbox One controller's mold, using a matte hard plastic that fits comfortably in the palm with a rubber grip on the underside. You don't get the weight adjustments of the Nacon here, but it's suitably lightweight. And even with the extra control panel at the bottom, with buttons to change profiles, mute and change volume, it doesn't feel overly bulky. Looking a bit closer, and it's clear this is again a controller tailor-made for the first-person shooter crowd first. Anyone familiar with the DualShock 4's stick height and tilt resistance should feel right at home here too. They feel very close, if a touch more sensitive, and come pre-equipped with two blue rubberized grips on top. These look cheap, I'll be honest, but under the thumbs they give a surprisingly satisfying spongy feel. For future-proofing such an expensive controller, it does make sense to have the area most prone to wear and tear be replaceable. You wouldn't want to use the stick underneath either. Taking these grips off, you're left with a very slippery material on the actual sticks. Another downside here is the steel stems of these sticks make a loud knocking sound when you hit the plastic rim. It's not as elegant as you'd expect, but with headphones on, you shouldn't notice. Overall, it's up for debate whether these are better or worse than the higher profile Nacon sticks, but if you're familiar with the DualShock sticks, it takes less getting used to. A big plus point for the Raiju are the triggers, a leap in quality over the Nacons at least. These come with the hair trigger mode that gives a shallow depression on each trigger for short bursts in shooters. Simply pull the locks of each trigger at the back and the trigger depression range goes from 18 degrees movement to 5. This cuts off all velocities beyond that point, so it's a bad choice for racing games or Rocket League where you'd need to access that full range to accelerate properly. But it's a useful feature for quick fire games that need faster trigger presses like Call of Duty for example. Now again, it's a sign the Raiju is mainly engineered for the best performance in FPS games, and sadly that's how it goes for the rest of the controller. Every input is extremely sensitive, from the small micro switch face buttons to the shoulder buttons. Even the lightest glance on these will trigger an input. It's great for translating a finger press quickly to an on-screen action, but I had to be extra careful where I rested my fingers with games like Dark Souls 3. For physical tactile response, the Raiju's face buttons will take a lot of getting used to after the official controller. It's very subtle. Another side effect of using smaller switches here is that the controller's heavy rumble can cause all buttons to rattle. Again, it doesn't make it feel as premium as it should. And then we get to the D-pad. Sadly, this is perhaps the worst D-pad we've used on a PS4 controller to date, even worse than the Nacon. There's really no skirting around the issue. Buttons don't press down easily and each button is individual, making quarter circle turns tricky in games like Street Fighter V. What we really wanted here is something akin to the Saturn's D-pad or even the Xbox One's version, which would have been better. As this stands, this is fine for quick selecting weapons in Call of Duty, but not ideal at all for moving characters in a 2D title. It's surprising to see the Raiju is also less customizable than the Nacon. You do at least get 4 extra assignable aluminium triggers which feel great at the back, though 2 can be removed if they get in the way. These are assigned in a really intuitive way too. All you do is hold the assign button on the control panel under the left analog stick, next hold one of those 4 triggers, and then a controller button you want to copy. You'll feel a jolt of vibration to know that the input is now mapped to the trigger. It's a more direct system than the Nacon for sure, and with no PC software involved, but at the expense of flexibility to tweak anything else. Overall, it's clear a lot of work goes into the engineering of a great controller. The pros and cons of the Nacon and the Razer Raiju make you realize just how much the regular DualShock 4 got right in the beginning, as a go-to controller for all games. In fact, between these two more expensive options, you could create a great hybrid controller, one with the triggers and ergonomics of the Raiju and the customization of the Nacon. But individually, it's hard to justify spending so much money when one element of either lets it down. As ever, a lot of this will come down to personal preference, but my view is I'd rather stick to using the regular PS4 controller for the time being. If first-person shooters are a focus though, for all its faults, the Raiju is still a very solid option for the money, though ideally I'd like to see Sony's own take on a premium controller. Microsoft has done a brilliant job with the Elite, and I'd love to see a true PlayStation equivalent. Anyway, I'd be interested to know your experiences with either of these in the comments. Otherwise, if this helped you make a buying decision in any way, please do like or subscribe to support what we do. But until next time, thanks for watching.
If you're really looking for a good controller, I'm going to have to suggest this. The official OnLive controller. You don't look very convinced.